the church of you, me, and we. There are many misconceptions about the church. Who is the church? What is the church? What should the church be doing? Let me attempt to clear up a few misconceptions about the church. Who is the church? The church is, for all intents and purposes, you, me, and we. We are the church. The building is not the church. 3220 Sherman Street is not the church. Lomax Temple is not the church. The AME Zion Church is not the church. The people are the church. The believers are the church. We make up the church, you, me, and we. That God cannot be restricted to a building. God can't be restricted to just an address or a denomination. God is too big, too wide, too tall, too grand a God to be restricted to just any one place. Who is the church? In the Greek, the word is ecclesia, which means the called out ones. That you, me, and we are the church because we are called out from the world. I need to say that again, that you are called out. We are called out from the world. We are in the world, but not of the world. The church is not the world. I need to tell you one more time, and I make myself feel good about this, that the church is not the world. We are called out from the world to be different from the world. The church should walk different. The church should talk different. The church should live different. The church should love different. The church should forgive different. The church should be everything that the world is not. But beloved, I want to tell you, over time, the church has forgotten who we are. And my job this morning is just to remind us that the church is you, me, and we. What is the church? The church is just a group of people that believe in God, and that when we worship God, the Bible says where there are two or three gathered together touching, that he is in the midst. So the purpose of us gathering together is for us to come into the presence of God. It does us no good if we come here to 3220 Sherman every Sunday and we never encounter God. We had no more than a feel-good meeting if we don't encounter God at some point in the church. The church is to meet God. That's why we come together, because if we meet God, then the power of God is present. The power of God is here. That's the reason that we've come here. We didn't come here for any other reason. I know you think that some of us have come here because we just want to sing, we just want to shout, we just want to pray, we just want to preach. But I'm here to tell you, all of that stuff means nothing if God does not show up in this place. Because when God shows up, things begin to change. People begin to change. Things start to happen when God shows up. So the purpose of the church is to come together in such a way that we cause God to come down out of eternity, to come down into eternity, so that he might be present in this place. Let me break it down. The purpose of us coming together is so that we might cause God to inhabit this place. And if we haven't done that, then we haven't done what we've been called to do. And after God has inhabited us for a while, we ought to take what we have experienced in our cohabitation with God and take that out into the world. It does me no good if I can't share my experience of God with somebody else. That If I can't share what God has done, then it does me no good. My witness, my testimony is no good if I can't tell somebody what good things God has done. What good is it for you to soak up all the glory of God and then don't tell anybody what good things God has done for you? The church of you, me, and we. Why are we the church of you, me, and we? Because God chose Christ to be our foundation. Verse 4 says, coming to him as to a living stone, rejected indeed by men, but chosen by God. We have been chosen by Christ. We are a chosen people. We are chosen by God. You have been selected. You have been picked out. You have been picked out to be picked on. You have been drawn out from the world to go through trials and tribulations. You are called out from the world, not to be in the world, to be of the world, but not in the world. You have been chosen by God to go through this. If you wonder why this has happened to you, I want to tell you, you've been chosen for this. You've been chosen for this. Then the church of you, me, and he are precious to God. It says again in verse 4, and precious. You're chosen by God and precious. That means you have value. That God just didn't choose any old body. He chose you, and thereby you're valuable. You had no value until he put value in you. He made you valuable just by your selection. Your selection makes you valuable. He put something in you that was valuable. He deposited something precious and valuable in you. There's something in you that makes you valuable to God. So, in these two concepts, he begins to build the church of you, me, and we. Why? Why do you ask? If you don't want to ask, let me ask for you. Why does he do these things? Why would he build the church on us? We are called, beloved, to be the substance. The substance. I want you to draw your eyes to verse 5. He says, and you are living stones and are being built up a spiritual house. You are called to be the substance. The substance. He built you a spiritual house. I want to use a little illustration that might help this out a little bit. Pray with me, will you? Let's see here. Pray with me. Let's see. I want to sit down. Let me sit down for a minute. Let me sit down. Once upon a time, there were 3 little churches. The first church was built on members. The second church was built on money. But the third church was built on Christ. And one day, the devil showed up to the first church. He didn't huff, he didn't puff, or any of that stuff. He just taught them how to fight. He taught them how to fuss. And he taught them how to cuss. And all the members just left. And that first little church dried right up. The devil showed up to church number 2. And he knew exactly what to do. He didn't huff, didn't puff, or any of that stuff. He made money their God. But they realized too late that money wasn't enough. And just like the first little church, church number 2 dried right up. Oh, but the third little church wasn't built like number 1 or number 2. And no matter what the devil tried, he just couldn't break through. He took all their money, their members and stuff. He got so mad he even huffed and he puffed. But that little church just wouldn't fall because the church was built on Christ, the strongest of all. I want to tell you that story because I want you to know unless you build your church on Christ, it's not going to stand. If you are not built on Christ, your church won't stand. You can build your stuff on all kinds of things. Your money, your members, but if your church is not built on Christ, if your members don't have Christ in them, it won't stand. We are called to be the substance of what the church is built on. Living stones. And what we've done is fallen for all the devil's trickery. He has caused us to forget who we really are. He has caused us to forget that we are the living, breathing church, that our hope is not built on stuff, it's built on Christ. That we are called to be the substance, the stuff that the church is made of. We are the stones. Every member is a stone upon which God builds the church. That the church is a living, breathing organism, and each member is a stone. And God is trying to put us together to build something. So the church of you and me and we are the church because we are the substance of the church. We are called to be the substance of the church. Then we are called to be sanctified. Verse 5 says we are a holy priesthood. Holy priesthood. We are called to live holy. I hate to bust your bubble this morning, but all of us have been called into the priesthood. All of us are priests. I'm a priest. You're a priest. We are priests. We are all ministers of the gospel. We have been called to be sanctified. What does that mean? You have been called to holiness. You just can't live any old kind of way and be a Christian. You can't just live any old kind of way and call yourself a believer. That if you call yourself a child of God, you are calling yourself to sanctification. That means your walk and your talk must reflect the fact that you have a relationship with Christ. You just can't live any old kind of way and say, I'm a believer. You just can't walk any old kind of way and say you're a believer, because he calls you into holiness. He calls you into sanctification. More and more like Christ you should be every day. I'm reminded of the Old Testament principle that we are called to holiness, that we have to live a certain way. See, the problem is with us, we want to live any old kind of way Monday through Saturday. We want to be able to do what we want, live how we want, say what we want Monday through Saturday. We live any old kind of way, but then on Sunday, we live like we know him. We all about Jesus on Sunday. We all about Jesus. We get up Sunday morning singing about Jesus. We all about him. We all about that Christian life on Sunday from about 9 to about 1:30. And then after that, we all about ourselves. We all about ourselves. We are the most important person in our lives. We are the most important. We are the sun and the moon and the stars in our own solar system. We focus just on us. And I tell you how I know it, because when we get out of church, the first thing we want to do is apply something to us. We want to know, what about me? What about us? And Monday through Saturday, we're living for us. We're not worried about anybody else as long as we are taken care of. Everybody else is secondary. And we rotate around our own solar system because we think we're the greatest thing that God ever created. And we wonder why we have the problems that we have. Now I'm just gonna tell it like a TI is, if you don't mind. I'm just gonna tell it like a TI is. You can't run to God on Sunday when you've been living like hell Monday through Saturday. I'm just gonna tell you like it is. I'm just gonna tell you. You can't do your stuff all week and then run to God and say, God, I need you. I need you every hour. No, you only need him from 10 to 1. That's the only time you need him. And then after that, you go back to doing what you do. But I'm telling you, if you're called to sanctification, sanctification is not just who you are. It's more than who you are. It is who you be. It is a being. It is a state of mind that I'm sanctified on Monday just like I am on Sunday. I'm sanctified on Wednesday just like I am on Sunday. I'm sanctified on Thursday night just like I am Sunday morning. That every day I get up, that my sanctification is based on my relationship with God. I might not feel like I'm sanctified every day, but I tell you that after all I've been through and that after all God has brought me through, I live as though I'm basing. We have to live sanctified lives if we're going to be the church. If we're going to be the church, we have to live as if we know Jesus. And not just on Sunday. We have to live Monday through Saturday like we know Jesus. We have to live that way. In our relationships, we have to treat each other that way as if God is the most important person in our lives. We have to stop being so self-centered. We have to stop being so self-important, as we think everything is about us, and we want everything to be about us, and we want everything to center around us, and we want God just to be secondary. In case we get in trouble, we call on him. In case we have problem, we call on him. In case we need a bill paid, we call on him. In case we need a healing, we call on him. But everything else, I got this, I got this, I got this thing, I'm doing my thing, and when I need you, I'll call you. And then we call ourselves a church. We call ourselves a church. We want to be the church, but we won't live right. We want to be the church, but we won't live right. And finally, we are called to be the church of you, me, and he, because we are called to give sacrifices, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God. I struggled with this one because it calls you to a place, it calls us to a place that very few of us are willing to go. And I'm going to tell you why. It is this type of sacrifice. An offering is a sacrifice. If it doesn't cost you anything, it's not worth anything. Okay, let me go a little further. The greater the cost, the greater the sacrifice, the greater the offering. And now you can apply that to your money if you want to. You can apply that to your lives if you want to. But when you come here, let's just deal with spiritual things. Can we just deal with spiritual things before? I don't want to get anybody's pocket. I just want to get into your spirit first. When you come into church, your attendance is a sacrifice. You coming here is an offering. Okay. When you come down the street and you turn onto Sherman and you come into the parking lot and you park and you come into the building, when you open the doors, you are presenting yourself as a sacrifice. It is an offering to God. Because worship is an offering. Okay. Worship is an offering. Because you are giving something to God. And the offering has to be sacrificial for it to be acceptable to God. So my offering is not acceptable if it doesn't cost me anything. So if I come into God's house expecting to offer God something that didn't cost me anything, that's not my best, it's not acceptable. So we sit here and we don't offer up our best to God and we expect him to be pleased with us. And we come in here Sunday after Sunday, some like bumps, some like logs, and we don't do anything but sit here and look and wonder and ponder about why God has put me through all of this. And I'm here to tell you that sometimes you just have to lift up your hands and give God some praise. Now, what happened in the Old Testament was when the priest would go in before the presence of God. They jumping, they having themselves a good time. But they say, okay, brother, before you go in there, let us tie this rope around your waist. Okay, why you want to tie this rope around my waist? Well, we won't tell you. In case you go into God's presence and you've been living any old kind of way, God is going to strike you down dead. And what we have to be able to do is we have to be able to pull you back out of the sanctuary. Now I want you, while you jumping around, to put the bells on too, because if the bells stop jingling and jangling, that means that you fell dead. So what I'm saying to you is that some of us have come into the presence of God unprepared. When you come into God's presence, you have to prepare yourself. You just run up in here like it ain't nothing. You ain't cleared your mind. You ain't cleared your phone. You ain't cleared your agenda. You ain't cleared nothing. You come in thinking about what you're going to do after. And you wonder why God ain't blessing you. You come in thinking about something else, what I'm going to eat, what I'm going to watch, what I'm going to do after church is over, and you wonder why God ain't blessing your life. Your mind is already cluttered with all kind of stuff. You think you can just run up into God's church and say, oh, God, you ain't prepared for nothing, and you wonder why God ain't blessing your life. And you're not going to give anything. Not your time, not your money, not nothing. And I'm using a double negative. And then you wonder why. I don't understand why I can't be blessed. I don't understand. I come to church. You ain't bringing nothing when you come. You ain't bringing nothing when you come to church. But a Coke and not even a smile. And then you wonder why God ain't blessing your life. You coming into church with nothing to offer. Well, I ain't got no money. You can't even offer your praise. You can't even offer your praise. You can't even offer yourself And you wonder why God ain't doing nothing with the church. There are a whole lot of us in here with ropes tied around us and the bells are... But we the church. And we called to be sacrificial. Being a Christian will cost you something. Being the church will cost you something. And we don't get it because we come in wanting something. We come in being consumers. What can I get? I don't come in here to get my blessing. Man, I don't come in here to get it. I don't come in here to get it today. But you ain't come to give nothing. You didn't come to give anything. And you wonder why God ain't moving in your life. Because all you trying to do is take. You come in taking. You come in taking. You come in. What can I get from God? What can I get from God? The answer should be, the mindset should be, what can I give to God? What can I give to God? My praise, my life, my body. What can I give to him who's done so much? So we want to be the church. We want to be the church. But we don't want to be the stuff that the church is made out of. And we don't want to be sanctified. We want to live however we want to live. And then we don't want to sacrifice anything. And we wonder why our churches have become mausoleums. Museums. Oh, I could go somewhere. Museum, all they do is talk about what we used to do. See, this was the church back in 1900. And this was the church back in 1956. This was the church in 1976. We really had it going on there. See, our pastor had a big afro. We really had it going on there. We had a good time there. And you know, the church, God has blessed us for 141 years. Look at all that God has done. That's a museum. That's a museum. If all we talk about is what God has done, then it's a museum. Because all it is a good history lesson. And then it's a mausoleum. Mausoleum is a beautiful edifice filled with ornate statues and windows and wooden ceilings and nice beautiful lights and a beautiful sanctuary and carpeted floors and nice pews, but there's no life. There's no life. There's no life. There's nothing. It's just quiet and silence. If you want to know what a mausoleum looks like, come in here Tuesday afternoon, sometime about 1. And you'll see there's nothing in here. And I want to say to you that if we don't get our act together, that Tuesday, you won't be able to tell the difference between Tuesday afternoon and Sunday morning. That at some point in time, that if we don't change, if we don't become the church that God has called us to, it won't matter what day we come in here. There'll be nothing going on. There'll be no move of God, because God has called us to be more than just a do-good club that meets on Sunday and Wednesday. So, the church of you, me, and we is called to do more than just meet, eat, and greet. And if you're tired of meeting, and you're tired of greeting, and you're tired of eating, and all we do is those 3 things, you ought to be sick and tired, like I'm sick and tired. I'm sick and tired. I'm tired of not feeling a move of God. I'm tired of not feeling his presence. If you're tired like I am, because see, I can tell you, let me give you, before I know this wasn't on the text, but let me give you the difference between just a good time and a God time. Let me give you the difference between just coming in here and having a good time and say, oh, we had a good time. And when God shows up, things are broken. God Almighty. See, when God shows up, God starts to break our facades and the masks that we wear. See, all the stuff, all that stuff we wear. like the Joker, the clown. We smiling, and we go home, and we still mad. We still sad, but we come in church pretending like we had a good time, and we go home and we beat the dog and kick the children and do all that other stuff. Okay? When God shows up, he begins to break things in your life. The things that you've been holding on to that have stopped you from giving him the praise. He begins to break those things. And the result of breaking those things are tears begin to flow. And there's a warm sense. There are things you can't hold back when God starts to break things. When you've had a God experience, you can't control a God experience. Now, you can control a church experience. You can control a good time. But when God shows up, you can't control that. You can't control how you feel. You can't control where you sit. You can't control if you stand. When God shows up, something just comes over you and you can't control yourself. When God shows up, you just can't hold back. When God shows up. And what he does is that he begins to try to heal you first by breaking you. Because he has to remake you. So he's trying to get us where we need to be. And that's the difference between a God time and a good time. That when you have a God time, you go home and you be like, Lord, you want to fall on your knees. And you say, Lord, I need you. And when you go home and you want to pray, and you say, I know that there's some things, when it begins to become introspective, you begin to look at your life and your spirit and you start saying, something ain't right. That's God working on you. But if you go home and all you talk about is, oh, how good the preacher preached, and oh, how good the choir sang, and oh, we just had a good time in the Lord, and we ain't doing nothing else but having. You ain't done nothing. You ain't done nothing. Because you're going to go right back Monday morning and act the way you acted before. So the church of you, me, and he, we're called to be the stuff, called to be sanctified. We're called to be sacrificial. We're called to be sacrificial. It's going to cost you something there. So I want everybody to stand.